everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thanks for joining me. I'll be your astrologer for today. We're going to be taking a look at the astrology really for the better part of the next week. This astro weather, I'm going to focus on talking to you guys about what's going on day by day with a real emphasis in this building energy with Mars in Aries coming into a square with Pluto in Capricorn. So we're going to be feeling it all week long. It's technically not really going to hit until sometime around July 1st, but if you guys are like me, you want a heads up for what's coming. So if you're new to my channel, welcome. Thanks for joining me. This is a part of my weekly show that I do where we talk all about the cosmic energies. It's like the astrological weather report. So it's really helpful if you're somebody who's new to astrology, or if you like to track the lunar cycles, or just take a look at what's going on in your own chart. Having a pen and paper and making notes so that way you know what to plan on can be super helpful. If you want more of my content, do consider clicking the subscription button below so you're alerted as to when I have new videos coming out. Oh man, guys, Mars square Pluto. You know, I guess, and we'll get into all of the different ways because I'm not like a doom and gloom astrologer. I feel like there can be pros and cons of any particular astrological transit, but this is a pretty heavy hitting one, considering the fact that both Pluto and Mars rule the South Node in Scorpio. So there's some sense of us being challenged when it comes to what we're willing to release and let go of. And yeah, it's gonna be going on all week long. So if you are somebody who is in a Mars ruled chart or a Pluto ruled chart, so if you're an Aries rising or a Scorpio rising, you will be feeling this. And if you guys stay tuned, I'll give you all the information as to how this is playing out for each and every one of the 12 signs in just a second. Let's see here. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with today, June 26th, the moon in Gemini. Well, probably one of my more favorite days all week, to be honest with you. I'm loving the fact that the moon is coming into conjunction with both Venus and also Mercury in Gemini. So if you're a Gemini or if you are an air sign, this is some wonderful energy. Venus in Gemini wants to have freedom. It wants to kind of flutter around a little bit like a butterfly. Very chatty, very social, can be a wonderful time for just connecting to people, socializing, placing a phone call, telling somebody you love them. But also it can be about talking about resources. It can be talking about traveling. If you're in the business of like blogging, podcasting, writing, anything like that, wonderful day for connecting and networking. If you're wanting to make plans to get away, right, go on like a short distance trip, maybe you're wanting to make summer plans, this is also a really great day to be able to do that. Then on the 27th, we're going to see that Mars in Aries moves into a sextile with Saturn in Aquarius. So I'm a fan of, even in spite of the Mars-Pluto square building, there's lots of support that's going to start coming from Saturn this week and really going into next week. Sextiles, harmonious energy, so where Saturn is saying buckle down, commit to something, Mars is helping us kind of push forward and be able to have courage, have passion. So when air and fire fuel each other, there is movement, there is a lot of back and forth communication. Wonderful day if you're looking to like strategize. Wonderful day if you're looking to start seeing results, results in regards to personal goals, physical goals, right? Aries can deal with our own motivation, how we're moving our body, and how we are using strategy and time planning or time management to kind of keep us in check, right? So, you know, Mars and Pluto, they're gonna kind of bump up against each other, and we're gonna see a little bit of like, I think challenges to the status quo, to what have been long existing pillars in our life that control us or scare us. So courage is kind of the name of the game all week long. I like also the fact that we are going to be seeing a sextile this day from also the moon in Gemini to Mars, and the moon's making trines to Saturn. So, you know, really Monday, Tuesday, great days to problem solve. I could see a little bit of like pressure building and people being like, let's talk about it. That's probably the way that you guys want to lean into this. Moon trine Saturn also is going to be kind of having serious conversations or laying the groundwork for future endeavors or future commitments. There can be lots of information and phone calls and emails and things going on with all these planets that we have in Gemini as well. So I would just say, be aware of that. You might want to be more on the up and up with checking your emails. And all of these energies are 12th house to the sun. So we are now in Cancer season. It is all about what we are emotionally tending to, nurturing, taking care of. And if you guys haven't already seen my new moon in Cancer video, definitely take a look at it, because it talks a lot about how we're combating fear. A lot of it's because we have so many planets that are 12th house to the sun in Cancer. But that particular new moon is going to be in a square to Jupiter. So there's big emotions, big feelings, and also a conjunction to Lilith and Ceres. So combating fear, right? We're combating fear of whether or not we're safe, whether or not we're secure. Lilith deals with like the darker side of feminine energy, and it can be raw, it can be sexual, it can also be kind of scary. So often what I've seen in Lilith transits is it brings up fear that needs to be dealt with and how we're responding to the shadow side of that particular archetype. So if we think of Cancer, very nurturing, warm, right, loving, very maternal. It deals with the roots, the past, the family, the home, property. But the darker side of Cancer can sometimes be smothering. It can be almost like too maternal. It can be very lunar in a sense of its moods. And Cancer energy, when it gets startled or when it gets challenged, it gets very reactionary and kind of like protection oriented, whether it's like, don't mess with my house, don't mess with my kids, don't mess with my emotions. So there can definitely be, I think, as a result of that new moon and this whole lunar cycle, as we build into in 2 weeks time, will be a full moon in Capricorn with the moon conjunct Pluto. We are combating fears relating to home and housing, the past and where we've been, where we've lived, old family patterns, versus where we're going and what we're kind of closing out. There's a lot of confronting, I think, skeletons in the closet or like boogeymen in the closet this week, because there's quite a few Pluto aspects going on. So it's natural to feel a little bit more emotional. It's natural to have big feelings. The question is how do we respond to that, right? Do we push back and get aggressive, or do we get defensive? Or do we make the decision to communicate as we go through some of these changing times and express where we're feeling scared, or maybe reflecting on the past and things that have happened in the past that actually affect our ability to feel secure moving forward? So totally normal to be emotional this week, guys. It is kind of part of the course. Now on the 28th, we then have that new moon in Cancer. It's going to be at 7 degrees and change. So anywhere, any placements that are cardinal placements, that's about 5 to, let's say, 8, 9 degrees, you're going to feel this the most. If it happens to be your birthday within a day before, maybe a day after, happy birthday to you. You have a new moon birthday. It's a brand new year for you. Definitely a good idea to consider getting a reading so you kind of know where that fresh start is taking place in your solar return chart. We just came off of the summer solstice here in the northern hemisphere. Summer has begun. So with this new moon, it's about honoring and really being able to find that safe, secure space within our home and setting new emotional intentions, purification, clearing, things like that. I'm going to tell you guys all the way up until the 28th, the next couple days, wonderful time to either do a full home detox, cleanse, organization, if you want to mop the floors, if you want to focus on getting everything ready. So when the new moon comes, we feel grounded, we feel safe. We can tend to our emotional needs and not feel like we have to jump into action. But I'll tell you that from the new moon on, the next couple of days, the energy is going to build in a very big way. So check out my new moon in Cancer video. This same day, like I said, we see the sun in Cancer square Jupiter. Can be positive, overly optimistic. Okay, we want to watch out, kind of keep the egos in check. Whenever there's squares to the sun, we are finding that there is like a challenge to our will, right? So Jupiter in Aries is saying, like, I want more new beginnings. I want more freedom. I want the ability to, be more adventurous. Or there's a lot of stuff going on in regards to like people's personal rights, their personal beliefs, civil liberties, things like that. So that's going to be a big topic for the better part of the next month as a result of this lunation. Sun square Jupiter is, like I said, a little overly optimistic. Moon square Jupiter is like big emotions and big feelings. So I'm anticipating whatever new intentions you're setting with this new moon in Cancer, is kind of launching for the better part of the next immediate 2 weeks, but really 6 months, moving into completely new, areas in our life. So we're going to see both where Aries and where Cancer is kind of emerging to just new topics. So watch for that. The moon rules Cancer, so that's the other thing, is that when you have a lunation that is obviously in the ruling sign, it's going to put a little bit more extra oomph and emphasis on that planet. So the moon being about the subconscious and sometimes what we're not aware of, and the sun being about action. When they come together, it's like we realize that before we make any moves, we have to really focus on building the foundation and creating that safe space. That's what the fourth house teaches us in aspect to the 10th, right? So we couldn't go to work, we couldn't have our day-to-day career, we couldn't focus on being really super productive or having some sense of like responsibility in the world without a safe place to come home to. So if you're somebody who's like very fourth house heavy, or if you have a lot of Cancer in your chart, you understand that you have to do the nurturing in order to kind of do the growing up in the opposite axis in Capricorn. So some of us might be feeling like we are thinking a lot about also like the polarity of this. That's like, well, where do I want to be, right? In 6 months, in 6 years, what changes do I need to make emotionally or within my home or family in order to be able to get more of where I want to go in terms of my life and also my career? Jupiter being in the mix also makes me feel like it's creating this sense of impatience, and the fact that we're getting impatient that things aren't happening fast enough. So just really focus on where Cancer is in your chart and take a look at that video, because I talk about how it's going to affect each and every one of the 12 signs. The same day, we have Venus in Gemini making a sextile to Jupiter. I like it. I feel like that's the opportunity to be communicating and sharing and excited about what new relationships we're bringing in, what new things that we love. Venus in Gemini can be like podcasts we're listening to, books we're reading. It can be about, like I said, short distance travel. So I think we're going to see this boom since really the solstice was an indication. The next 3 months, we're going to see a lot more people traveling, right? By planes, which is going to be Jupiter, also by vehicles, like going on short distance trips. A lot more people are going to start going out and doing things. So wonderful energy for starting to plan some of these trips. So if you want to get out of town, visit family, go on a short weekend getaway, this is wonderful energy to kind of start setting some of that stuff up. Even if you're not doing it now, you may be doing it when Mars gets into Gemini, and then you really kind of do this a little bit later in the summer. And then last but not least, we've also got Neptune going retrograde in Pisces. So Neptune will be retrograding until about early December of 2022. Wherever Neptune is in your chart, now it's turning inward. So there's going to be a process of asking yourself, what do I believe in? What do I need to focus on, either dissolving and letting go? Where have I been confused? It could go both ways. I mean, a retrograde starting now, I think, is going to give us time between now and the end of the year to really reflect on, are we in touch with spirit? Are we taking time to meditate? Are we watching too much TV? Are we, drinking too much? Like very Neptunian things. I would say like Neptune being retrograde is kind of similar to Saturn or Pluto, which both of them are retrograde right now. We get a little bit of a break from their direct energy. So now we're reflecting on, where did I drop the ball? Or, where did I misunderstand something? Look at where Pisces is in your chart. The nice thing is that as we go through Cancer season, we're going to see the sun and also Mercury and inevitably Venus make trines to the South Node and Neptune. So that's going to be very emotional, but it's going to be good because it's going to allow us to like really let go of the past. So if there are things that we keep harping on, we keep obsessing over, if there are things that we are afraid to say goodbye to or kind of bury and let go of, it's going to help us release that a little bit more easily. But yeah, just watch. The energy is very different once we get into Cancer season, because we're going to see a great deal of either oppositions to Pluto, which will be asking us, is it time for this to be kind of released or buried or put to rest? And trines to the South Node, which is going to represent the same thing. All right, so I might do a video on Neptune retrograde. We'll talk about that a little bit more. I'd like to probably do that when we see the sun get a little bit closer to that trine. Then on the 29th this week, the moon in Cancer comes into a sextile with Uranus in Taurus. No real significant aspects this day with the moon, other than the moon is coming out of a square with Chiron. So there can be a little bit more emotional sensitivity. And it will be from this day forward that you are just going to see the tempo really pick up in terms of what's going on with the astrological energy. So be prepared for that. Moon square Chiron, I believe it's like this sense of like where we're becoming aware of what we need to be working on or healing within ourselves. And something that's been like coming up a lot, talking to clients and also just meditations and things that I've been reflecting on is like nobody's going to be able to do this healing work for you, right? Chiron in Aries is very much about tending to your own wounds. And also you can't rush the healing, guys. That's something that we've been learning since Mars was in conjunction to Chiron, since Jupiter and Mars came together. We might have more momentum. We might feel more inclined to want to finally address some of these wounds, but we cannot rush it. Take your time. Then on the 30th, Mars moves into the square with Pluto. Now, personally, I'm feeling it now. I don't know about you. I've been feeling it all week, but I have a very Mars-Pluto heavy chart, so maybe that's why. And we'll talk about the pros and the cons of this. I mean, I want to really focus on the positive side of this, so let me break down the archetypes for you. Mars obviously is the ruling planet for Aries, and it's quick moving. It can be about passion, courage, desire, right? It wants to kind of just step into action. It wants to rise to the occasion. Mars in Aries also is a very primal energy. So it's our natural kind of sexual responses, our natural defenses, where we have a tendency to want to protect or defend ourselves physically, right? And when Mars comes into a hard angle with another planet, it's really highlighting what a square is. So when we see a square, we see two planets that are at a 90-degree angle from each other. So for example, Capricorn squares Aries, right? And then we also see Cancer square Aries. Now the challenge is that I feel like it's going to be a bit of a battle of the wills. Seeing that we're seeing the square happening where it's the opening square, so basically it's the first 90-degree angle that happened since we had Mars and Venus in Capricorn. We want to reflect back to that heavy-hitting planet, that time period, excuse me, December, January of this last year, where we saw a ton of planets in Capricorn. We had retrogrades in Capricorn. There was a lot of thinking about what are we, restructuring, what are our long-term goals, what are our responsibilities. Now we are seeing the very first opening square, so it's going to challenge it. Kind of like when we see the first quarter moon, right? Right after the new moon, when you see a square happening to the other side of that new moon, the pressure builds. Like we see the very first challenge or hurdle that we have to kind of overcome within that lunar cycle. So Mars is a part of the opening square. I feel like that gives it a lot more dominance over Pluto, which is crazy because, even though Mars is in its ruling sign, in the back of my mind, I'm like, yeah, but, Capricorn is Mars exaltation. So Pluto and Capricorn packs a little bit more of a punch in this situation. When we see Mars in a hard angle to Pluto, we're going to see themes of passion and desire and will being challenged, right? So Mars wants to move very quickly, and it's going to say, come on, speed up, let's go. I want to do this. We could be rushing. And when it squares Pluto, there could be some heavy hitting consequences for us acting out, being aggressive, rushing. If we are getting violent, if we are being defensive, Pluto is definitely going to hit back quite hard. Now the buildup of this, which we're feeling all week, is going to be, I think, a little bit of like a cosmic pressure cooker. And then as soon as the square perfects and it starts to release, things are going to get a little bit easier. But really, this is the big setup, I think, for the full moon in Capricorn when we see the sun come into an opposition with the moon in about 2 weeks' time with Pluto. And it's the setup for the final sun opposed Pluto transit before Pluto goes into Aquarius. And that's going to be kind of showing us like, where do we need to change our home, our emotional goals, what we're doing with family, where we're living. and also what's going on with our career. This has been a long-standing theme, guys. We have really been seeing this play out pretty much since 2017, 2018, when we were still seeing the Pluto-Uranus squares taking place between Aries and Capricorn. Now, if we think about it, there's been so much shift through the Saturn and Capricorn transits that we had the last couple of years, having people make some really difficult decisions between their homes and their family and their responsibilities to their family, how they feel about their family, where they're living, and also their careers, right? So people have really had a lot of pressure working from home, having to make serious decisions about whether or not they uproot their lives, if they move their families, if people split up, if they are moving in with other relatives. And this is finally kind of hitting that pinnacle point where I think people are at their wits' end emotionally, Cancer, with the governing powers in the world and what people are telling us is kind of happening, or what changes are manifesting in the world right now that are threatening our security, okay? So that feeds into the new moon. That's also feeding into the square. So as Mars in Aries comes into the square with Pluto, individuals are going to start getting a little testy. So if you have any personal placements, right? If you're a sun, moon, or rising, that's a cardinal sign. Like let's say between 25 and 29 degrees. Pay attention, especially if you're the third decan of the cardinal risings, right? So that'll be Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. There are going to be things happening where you're having to make moves. Mars is pushing you to kind of speed something up. Pluto is saying, whoa, 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 you can't do that. That's not something that's okay. And it's going to feel threatened, and it's going to try to really wield its power. When these squares happen in the world, we can see things that are explosive. We can see things that are dangerous. We can see violence. So that's why I'm letting you guys know, really from let's say the 28th, maybe even through the 4th of July, just be aware of your surroundings when you're going out places. You know, I think of like car accidents. I see a lot with like Mars square Pluto stuff. I see people getting really obsessive or really adamant about having things their way. And that's what's kind of funny when you see any conflict between Aries and Capricorn. Aries definitely has the energy and the vitality and the will, but Capricorn has the ability to wait it out, and it deals with time. So there might be this sense of you feeling like you're under the gun when it comes to like time and responsibilities and like work things. And there's going to be some pushback. So watch for that. That square is going to begin to build. And we're also going to see it really building this day because it's also creating a cardinal T-square. So if you guys see now, the moon has come out of the conjunction with the sun. The moon is still in Cancer this day, but in the afternoon hours, at least here in the West Coast and into the evening on the East Coast, the moon is in a hard square to Mars and also Pluto. So when the moon makes an opposition to Pluto, we're feeling emotionally threatened, challenged in some capacity. And then also we're going to see the moon square Mars, which means there's going to be some emotional reactions, some tempers, some intense things that are going on that are forcing us to kind of act. So Cancer is going to say, how does it make you feel? Mars is going to say, I'm not putting up with this anymore. This is my response. And the square to Pluto is going to be whether or not we're willing to uproot fear and no longer let fear kind of be in the driver's seat. So be mindful this day that there are going to be some intense exchanges, and just move slowly. Take your time with the moon in Cancer. We're still in that phase of the new moon, so it might still be a good time to just kind of just stay in and focus on emotional security and taking good care of yourselves. Now that square becomes exact on the 1st, and that's going to be on Friday. So if you are somebody who works with vehicles, if you're somebody who works with things that are under pressure, hot, where you could cut yourself, hurt yourself, if you're somebody who's driving, pay attention, especially because this is at a 27, so it definitely does deal with vehicles, words, and anything in relation to communication, right? Documents. Like, we don't want to force conversations this day. We don't want to force somebody to sign an agreement this day. We don't want to get in the car and, do 60 in a 30. Really slow down and take your guys' time, okay? Then on the second of the week, we're going to see Mercury in Gemini come into a trine with Saturn in Aquarius. And so this is where we start kind of really cooking with gas. We kind of get out of what's been that emotional couple-day peak around the new moon. Mercury in a trine to Saturn is basically saying, hey, this is the plan. I love that it's in an air trine. Both planets are in their ruling sign, so they're going to have a little bit more of an oomph. The positive side of the Mercury trine Saturn also is like this feeling of being able to get everything on the table, being able to get all the words out, and being able to assess all of the different options. Wonderful follow-up after some of those Mars-Pluto squares energies. I feel like it gives us the opportunity to sit down and be like, okay, so do you want to talk about it? Like, how can we find ways to communicate better? How can we both be heard rather than just waiting to talk, right? But Mercury trine Saturn, I feel like also might be headlines or anything that's coming out in regards to travel or anything in regards to limitations. Although the trine is generally more so positive. It's not as hard as a square. We've also got Mercury in Gemini that even in the midst of the trine to Saturn is now at a square to Neptune. So it makes me feel like a bit of like pulling the wool over our eyes. Like, I'm in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, is there going to be some intense situations that play out earlier in the week in the world? And as a result of that, we hear, well, we're gonna issue, you know, this this limitation, or we're going to, you know, kind of further lock something down, or something in regards to communication or travel. But you're going to hear things like, but we're doing it for security, right? When Mercury squares Neptune, there's something that's distorted, okay? And both of these are in their ruling signs. They're immutable signs as well. So Mercury square Neptune is like the telephone game where it's like, did you hear what happened? And by the time the story gets back to you, it's completely changed. I don't know. It's kind of a grab bag, you know? Honestly, it's kind of a grab bag. And I would say that with the moon in opposition to Saturn, the moon will be in Leo this day. Once again, feeling that sense of emotional distance, or collectively us feeling like there's some kind of limitation or restriction. But the sextile to Mercury and then the trine to Saturn is like, oh, no, it's not what you guys think. We're not locking things down, but we're doing this for your safety, right? There's going to be something like this that's going to come up, and it's going to be distorted. Not a day to sign contracts, not a day to be not totally aware of everything that's going on in conversations. You might have to read between the lines a little bit, right? There can be some blurry kind of communications, or flat out deception, unfortunately, that kind of comes with this square. I could see how, because Mercury is forming the square to Neptune on the right side, that there is this sense of being like, oh yeah, but that's not true. Like, did you know, I heard this. Yeah, no, that's not true. And then come to find out, like, it was real. Whatever you're reading or kind of hearing in the news. Not a fan of the moon in Leo at this time, because it will oppose Saturn. It'll square the nodes. That's reenacting that grand fixed cross. I've said this before. Guys, pay attention when the moon is in Leo. Whatever bang up situation is happening right around early July will be almost foreshadowing what's going to happen in August, when there is some major kind of setback or limitation as planets in Leo move to oppose Saturn and then square the nodes. Now, Leo deals with what our heart has to say. It deals with creativity. It deals with youth, children, bars, concerts, events, anything in regards to having fun. So, you know, I could see a little bit of like breakdown where it's like, you know, we're going into things for the 4th of July here in the United States, only to kind of find out like, oh, there is still going to be some limitations going on. So you guys will benefit from just kind of seeing how you're feeling during that time. Fixed signs, you're really going to feel this, so just be mindful of that. And the moon in Leo is going to trine Mars, you know, and because we're in Cancer season, lunar transits are really important. So moon opposed Saturn is going to be some kind of limitation and setback, but with the moon trine Mars, people are going to be like, no, we're not doing that. There's going to be pushback. We're going to see more pushback going on between now and I would say the beginning of August than we have seen over the last several years. People are going to start getting a little bit more impatient. People are going to start kind of saying, no, I'm going to go and do things my own way. And then finally on the 3rd, we're going to see the moon move into Virgo. So a little bit more stable, a little bit more grounded. For the most part, you know, I'm I'm not thrilled about seeing Mars hanging out around 29 degrees for a day or two. That's also kind of like a pinnacle point, right? Anytime you get planets in the last couple degrees, it has this connection to like either Mars or Saturn energy generally, where it's like we're gonna make a move or we're gonna kind of restrict something. So coming off of whatever intense stuff is going on at the end of June going into July, makes me feel like there's just more tension that's gonna be like out in the air in general. Moon's not really making too many aspects though. It still is in a trine with Mars, but now it's going to be in a different element. And as we get into the 4th and the 5th, then we'll see the moon move through Virgo, and it'll trine the North Node Uranus, it'll trine Pluto. But right around 4th of July, we see the moon come into opposition with Neptune, and it's going to square Venus. So I kind of feel like this is still some weirdness revolving around like health and stuff over the holiday period. I know it's not technically going to be a weekend. It's going to be like on a Monday, Tuesday. I could see like a lot of people calling in sick. You know, it's being like, oh, I have to be at work on the 4th or, you know, on the 5th, and then people partying over the weekend and they're like, I had a little bit too much to drink with that moon opposed Neptune square Mercury and Venus. So if you are planning on doing that, you might want to do it sooner rather than later, because that moon opposed Neptune can get you in some trouble if you're posting pictures on social media having a good time. That's most of what's going on this week. Like I said, you know, my favorite day is probably going to be today, the 26th. And also when we see all of the trines going on the 2nd, when we see Mercury trine Saturn. It's going to be really nice to see both Mercury and Venus come into trines with Saturn. I'm really looking forward to it, because I feel like it's going to make us realize that we had to, over this last Mercury retrograde period, rework the ways that we were thinking in regards to security, and like now we're able to communicate what we need to feel safe a little bit better. So it's all going to start kind of coming together. Hopefully it's a good week for you guys. Now I want to get into talking about the Mars square Pluto transit. I'd like to pull cards for each and every one of the 12 signs. Obviously, I'm a Western astrologer. This is going to be for whole sign predictions. So you want to listen for your ascendant and also your sun. You can also listen to your moon. As a reminder, this is going to be felt the most for anybody who's got placements really between 26 and 29 degrees of the cardinal signs, specifically Aries. Aries sun, moon, and rising. Watch for this. And, you know, Aries, Scorpio, and also Capricorn, you guys are going to be the ones really feeling this pressure this week. And I'm going to talk to you about where Mars is in your chart right now and where it's squaring off with Pluto, and give you guys some ideas as to how that could manifest, okay? So listen for your ascendant first, guys. Let's go ahead and start with Aries and Aries rising. So you've got Mars in your first house. You're feeling pumped, you're motivated, you might be rushing around doing things, you might be kind of more focusing on fitness. And one thing that I think that can kind of come up with this transit is just you being really passionate about feeling like you're in control, right? Because that's one of the other themes, I guess I should have mentioned, about Mars-Pluto, is that it can bring this sense of like needing to be brave, like rising to the occasion, and challenging something that has always scared you, or something that has always felt like it had a hold or a power over you, and now you're like, okay, I'm willing to kind of really step up and finally face that demon. It can also be about passion and desire, sexual desire. So lots of people can be feeling very kind of frisky with some of the squares. There can be a sense of things that can be more aggressive though. So like this doesn't feel like a Venus-Neptune conjunction or a sextile. Like Mars and Pluto can definitely be a little bit more intense and a little bit more physical. So if you are an Aries or an Aries rising, you might be feeling this. It can also be just about being aware of your surroundings, you know, especially if you're like, I think an Aries rising, if you're like speeding with the square to Pluto, is like the cop's gonna pull you over, right? And he's gonna be a jerk about it. Like that's the kind of stuff that you're gonna see. If you are rushing into work and you're late and you know you had to stop and get your Starbucks and your boss is like, why are you here 15 minutes late but you had time to get coffee? You'll snap at your boss. That's the kind of stuff that you're gonna see. So, you know, watch it, Aries. Know that There's a little bit more tension in the world right now. You're kind of in the hot seat. With the sextile to Saturn, I think it's about basically being like more adamant about your goals, staying active socially, anything in regards to feeling like you have support from other people. It could also be like, you know, having a rough day at work and then needing to call the friend and being like, oh, you're sick of your job too? Okay, let's talk about it. Let's commiserate together, or let's just quit our jobs and Jerry Maguire the whole thing and start our own company. There's ways to work with Saturn so that way you can make this work for you. So I know you're going to feel like it's you versus the world. I know it's going to feel like it's you versus your career, your bosses, your superiors, but find ways to use this energy and stay active so you're not like burning it all down. Okay, that's my advice to you. It's going to be about change too, how you're making changes. And let's see what the cards say. Page of Swords. Am I surprised by this? No, because I was like, I could see a lot of Aries rising just getting real sassy. Watch your words. But Page of Swords is also about learning that words are powerful. It doesn't need to be combative and confrontational. Sometimes the Page of Swords is about learning how to communicate in a new way. It can be a little defensive. It can be a little clunky. This can be about messages coming. This can be about like getting like a snippy text or an email, or just somebody who's just a little bit immature in terms of how they're communicating with you. So the warning is just like, don't hit back and be mindful that you're learning new ways to communicate without feeling the need to be aggressive. But it's swift, right? Very swift. And you have to act when you see the Mars-Pluto squares. There is a sense of like, okay, am I going to hit back, or am I going to be like super focused and kind of like reformed? Aries is not good at that. All right, so now we've got Taurus and Taurus rising. You've got Mars moving through your 12th house, Taurus. I'm assuming you're frustrated. It can also be about you just feeling like you have more alone time, and that there is a sense of you having the opportunity to kind of reflect on, why have I been short-tempered? Why have I been more aggressive? Where am I getting upset because I feel like I'm letting things slide? On the flip side, Mars in the 12th is wonderful for drums, percussion, dance. If you're somebody who smokes or like vapes or anything like that, you may feel more inclined, like there's more of an urge to be like, I want to smoke something, or I want to smoke things that you might eat. Mars rules your natal 7th house, so it can also just be about more sexy time behind the scenes with a partner. Great for spiritual work, shamanic work, but it's coming into a square with the 9th house, Pluto. So there can be some tension about things that are not talked about in relationships. There can be some tension where it's like your beliefs versus, you know, what you're learning to believe in. Challenges in philosophy. That's the other way that I could look at it. Perhaps that there is a sense of focusing on getting away and having more private time with a partner. That can be another way that this manifests. But when you see Pluto in the 9th square the 12th, I really think that it's, if you are traveling, right, be careful. Be mindful of your surroundings. Be mindful of who you're interacting with, especially if you're in foreign places or places that are unusual to you. There can be a sense of you really needing faith right now to be your guide and kind of help you get through some kind of frustrating situations. All of these energies will leave Aries and then come into your sign pretty soon. So right when Mars goes into Taurus, the energy shifts, where if you're not properly dealing with this anger or frustration or pent up sexual energy now, you can be quite temperamental and kind of short actually over the next couple of weeks to follow. Building into July when we have the North Node Uranus conjunction starting at the end of the month going into August. So we don't want to let these things hang around. The 12th house is also like what we're not supposed to do, or what we're not supposed to show, or it could be kind of like subconscious. So there could be things that are kind of bubbling underneath the surface in terms of issues with a relationship, or like a partner having issues with you. So watch for that. Hidden enemies we can also see as well. So you might kind of feel like you're a little bit more on the defensive side with others, or you're a little bit more superstitious or what have you. Page of Pentacles. Being grounded. This is about getting grounded. This is also possibly about things coming up revolving around like, do I feel safe and secure? Mars also can be talking a lot about like, am I safe or stable in this financial partnership, in this relationship? Am I feeling that what I'm starting is actually going to like pay off? You can be having some financial frustrations. Page of Pentacles can be an indication though that you're learning new ways to make yourself feel secure or safe, whether that's how you're handling money, what you're eating, connecting more in nature. Can be so helpful with Mars in your 12th house that you're connecting in nature and finding time to like garden or go hiking or just getting your hands in the dirt, okay? Now we've got Gemini and Gemini rising. We've got Mars moving through your natal 11th house, super social, very active. And it's coming into a square with Pluto in your natal 8th house, which deals with like other people's resources, karmic entanglements. Gemini, you know, one thing I would say for you is be careful and be mindful that there are some real intense exchanges that can kind of come about with some of your friends, right? Mars in the 11th house is like socializing more, getting real adamant about pursuing your goals and networks. And as it squares off with Pluto in the 8th, there can be this sense of realizing like it's not good to mix business and pleasure, right? Or it's not good to mix relationships or sexual energy and friendships. There can be some issues there. It can be that a partner is getting a little weird or jealous or possessive over the fact that you're socializing and you're going out and you're doing things. But look for intense exchanges with friends, plot twists socially, right? There can also be a sense of like finding out that you can join a group or an association, but you have to make some kind of hefty investment, or they're really requesting that you're paying like your dues or something up front. And you're like, how bad do I want to be a part of this? Like, is it worth what I'm going to pay to be a part of it? Am I going to get something back from it? And there can be some heated exchanges. Don't talk about money. Don't talk about politics, right? Don't talk about any of that stuff like investments or the stock market. You can have some really heated exchanges with people about some of these topics that can lead to, you know, some like Facebook quarrels type of stuff. You want to be careful also with just freely talking about or sharing financial information, either online or with groups, because Pluto in your 8th can bring about the possibility for like scams or somebody taking something. So just be careful with how much information you're sharing about some of your resources. Page of Swords again. Wow. Be careful. It's been page, guys. So this is basically saying everybody is needing to be mindful that the energy can go 0 to immature real quick. It's also saying you need to be careful what you're saying, what you're talking about. That's crazy. This came up again. I'm wondering for you, Gemini, because this is also talking about the element of air, if you're learning that less is more, right? You're focusing more on watching people rather than telling people things. You're like learning to kind of see like what are people's true motives. So it's about putting less out there and learning to observe. Wow. Now we've got Cancer and Cancer rising. How's it going, Cancer? I hope you're well. This is going to be similar to the other cardinal signs, a little intense, okay? You've got Mars moving through your 10th house. Jupiter is there, Cancer. I know it's intense right now, but I'm going to tell you, like, it's really great for incentivizing you and getting you to think about what do you want to do for a living? Do you want to start your own business? Do you want to feel like you have more authority in your own life? Do you want to be out there more? It can bring up a competitiveness, though, with the squares to Pluto. So you've got Pluto in your 7th house. Know that the 7th and the 10th house are very public houses. So if you are getting intense, if you are having meltdowns, if you are experiencing power plays with other people, like it's going to be seen, right? This can be some messy stuff in the workplace, or this can be some messy stuff publicly in regards to a relationship. 7th and 10th deals with our status in the world too. So 7th can be about our committed relationships. 10th is what people see. I could see some breakups happening. I don't like saying that, but between this and also the full moon that's coming in Capricorn, if you've got a business partner, a spouse, a romantic partner, if you have got a client, anything like that, that you feel like is a little bit more of that Pluto energy where they're taking advantage or they're using scare tactics to challenge whether or not you're in control. If there's like an old manager that you need to get rid of, if there's anything like that, like there can be a sense of people being like saying things to you like you're not gonna make it without me, right? That's the kind of stuff that you might hear. Or the challenge revolving around really defining and making your own way in the world versus feeling like you have to be partnered or you have to be somehow labeled something with another person. So I could see like business independence happening, relationship independence happening, and you're kind of breaking away and being like, I don't need you. It's not going to be you telling me what to do all the time. And yes, it's combative, but it's good because it's going to help you take charge of your life, and it's going to really help you assess relationships and whether or not they are supporting you or if they're manipulating you, right? I don't like saying that, but that's just the way that it goes. So you really watch how some of the partnerships in your life are behaving. Are they responding well to the fact that you're independent and maybe you want to be working full time? Are they responding well to the fact that you're not needing them as much in a business sense or in a professional sense, or do they become threatened? And does that materialize as you guys having some power plays to the point where you're like, you know what, actually, I think I'm gonna go my own way. It's very possible. The card that I get is the Three of Coins. This card can be like, do it better, right? Like get to work, like get going on it. And somebody kind of really breathing down your neck about actually completing a task. This can also be about working with other people though. So it is saying that learning that whether it's a relationship or a professional thing, like there needs to be a team effort. Like it's not just you, it's going to require other people to also do work on themselves. Three of Coins is a positive card. It's about getting the job done. It's about perfecting something. It's about building something. It can be putting something together as a team. Maybe you're managing things and there is more of a need for you to oversee things rather than be focusing on like that one-on-one relationship with other people. So people can be having a difficult time adjusting to the fact that you're the one giving them direction and telling them what to do. Now we've got Leo and Leo rising. This is going to be Mars moving through your natal 9th house, which is hot for travel, education, going on long distance trips, anything in regards to your beliefs about yourself, right? Because it's Aries. So maybe you've been traveling, maybe you're planning on doing some solo traveling. And it's coming into a hard angle with Pluto in your 6th. So this is bringing up the theme of like, in order for you to facilitate getting on that plane, going and taking that course, completing that program, being by yourself, like there are some challenges to Pluto in your 6th, which is your daily routine, right? And the 6th house deals with like coworkers. It also deals with like pets. It deals with health. And it also is ruled, Pluto is the ruler of the 4th house for you. So I feel like there can be some scheduling issues with like family and you needing to express to family, like, I got to go and do some stuff. I can't be here all the time. You know, whether you got to travel for work or you're feeling like you need some personal travel. It can also be some heated exchanges that you have with coworkers and like trying to get people to like cover a shift, or people who are kind of like power playing you in regards to your schedule, being like, no, you can't take the time off. And you're like, I already bought the tickets, so what are we gonna do? These are the things that can happen. You also want to pay attention because this can bring about intense things going on work-wise that kind of disrupt any future travel plans as well. So maybe you're like, I've got this trip planned, I'm working, I'm saving money and things like that until I go on this trip, and then like there can be some real changes with either where or how you're working. Sometimes it can manifest as like job changes or job endings coming into this full moon in Capricorn, where you're like, I didn't see that coming, so now how am I going to afford this? In certain circumstances, it's not going to be like this for everyone. Watch for also bad behaviors that can come up. You might notice that if you're really good about your routine when you're at home and you're like making your bed, you know, eating healthy, working out, walking the dog, going on a trip, you might find with the Mars square Pluto that you're like, you know, drinking and partying and doing things and feeling like it's not a life in balance, and make you realize that it would benefit you to learn more about health, wellness, your belief system, integrating that into your daily routine so you're able to find that balance and you're not feeling like you go off the rails when you aren't at home or you aren't at work, and then you're playing catch up when you come back, right? Okay. But yeah, watch out for fears of changing your schedule. I think that's really how this is going to be manifesting for you guys. And also with Mars in the 9th square, Pluto in the 6th, be careful with what you're eating. Like be careful with like food. Like there can be issues with food, like food that's been contaminated or food poisoning. And just make sure that you're staying safe when you're traveling and that you're not putting yourself in a situation where you're more prone to like either an accident or some kind of crime. Unfortunately, Pluto does deal with crime. Bad habits, Leo, stop it. Yeah, I know, I'm not surprised by this card. It is saying that where Capricorn is in your chart, you feel bound or stuck in some ways. And for some of you guys, it's not a bad habit. You're like, it's not a bad habit. It's the fact that you go on vacation and you're answering emails the whole time and you're not really making conscious changes in your schedule so you can have more downtime, right? But this is about work. This is about responsibility. This is about routine and something that you feel bound to that you can't really let go of or that you can't change. It's important when the devil comes up to be aware and like conscious of what it is that's threatening you or making you feel stuck so you can break the chains and you can break out of it. It might take some time. Watch for the full moon that's coming in Capricorn. I have a feeling that's when you're really going to see that there is some kind of major conclusion that's taking place for you. Now we've got Virgo and Virgo rising. You've got Mars moving through your 8th house, which is kind of sexy. It's giving you the opportunity to focus on other people, connecting with other people. It can be more about sex, passion. It can be about investing money, making money. But it's coming into a hard angled square with Pluto, which is in your 5th house. And this is an interesting one because I feel like it's going to bring some intense exchanges with other people. There can be like some sexual obsession, some dating obsession, something like that can kind of come up. Pretty common with Mars Pluto. Sometimes we see like stalking situations. Sometimes we see people who are just really like sexually aggressive or intense or kind of like, you know, possessive. So watch for some of these exchanges with other people. You know, there can be sudden moves taking place in regards to your love life or your investments, but I think it's getting you to think about passion. And Mars in the 8th is a great placement. It's going to give you the opportunity to really focus on being able to engage with somebody else, whether that's sexually, spiritually, or financially. With the square to Pluto, it's kind of like you tapping on your chest going like, okay, is my heart still in there? Like, do I feel things? Am I scared to feel things? Am I scared to open up? There can be intense exchanges about money and resources, also in regards to hobbies, investments, or children. 8th house can be other people's resources, so I could see some Virgos kind of getting fed up and being like, that's it, you know what, I want to raise, or you know, you're going to pay me the child support, you're going to pay me the spousal support. Some heated exchanges with romantic partners or anything in relating to children with this stuff. Don't go rushing into any investments is the one thing I would say. Mars might have you considering dipping into your savings because Pluto can be very enticing. So there can be a sense of being like, yes, I want to buy that art piece. Yes, I want to buy that engagement ring. But I would say be careful because you may find that later on, it may not be something that was as good of a purchase or an investment. Let me put it that way. All right, so let's take a look. Again, really? So who got this? We got this with Aries, we got this with Gemini, and we got this with Virgo. Holy cow, watch your words. I feel this is where you're communicating from a space of being scared and not knowing how to communicate and express yourself properly. You got a ton of planets in Gemini right now. Obviously, it's making some squares and some oppositions, and I feel like when it comes to relationships, partners may need to see a more assertive side of you. They might need you to open up and communicate if you're shutting down. I also want you to just be mindful that if there's any conversations or talk about children or anything relating to your love life, this is saying don't be immature about it. You know, don't just throw words around. Don't just say stuff. Really speak from the heart and try your best not to fall into patterns where you're communicating in a way that's defensive or immature because you're scared. Okay? Wow. I don't think we've seen that card or a card come up that many times before. So now we've got Libra and Libra rising. What's up, Libra? You've got Mars moving through your 7th house of relationships. So relating to other people is important. It is important to pay attention to their actions, what they're doing. I know that we can get wrapped up in being like, yeah, you know, they say one thing and do another. But that's not the case right now, actually. You have a ton of planets in Gemini. It's sextiling Aries here throughout the next week. I feel like this is with partners really showing you like, okay, it's not just my actions. We're talking about what we're doing. We're talking about where we're going. So that's the positive news. The not so positive news is that this is definitely going to bring up some challenges relating to airing out the past because you've got Pluto in the 4th. So you may be feeling like there's lots going on with a partnership and relationships that are building. Highlighted 7th and 9th house can be things like talking about committing to more seriously, telling people what you're looking for when it comes to relationships, talking about getting married, talking about moving, ceremonies. But with the squares happening for Mars in the 7th, where relationships are just picking up for people who are partnered and people who are looking for someone, the square to Pluto is going to be things like needing to air out the past and express to partners what's happened in your past, whether that's with your family, whether that's with past relationships, past living situations, and where you want to go into the future. So you're not repeating old patterns, right? There can be some power struggles going on. There can be some conflicts either with somebody you're living with or with a roommate. It can also be with your spouse. It can be also you explaining to a partner about issues that you have with a specific family member. That's usually how this manifests. It's going to be intense, especially when planets go through Cancer. You're going to see that there is this emphasis and wanting to move more so into creating a space either at work or within your home life where you are feeling more safe and secure. So you're not touchy or sensitive with a partner. Partners can be bossy. They can be bossy about things around the house, how they want things, but it can be a positive energy because it can also be pushing and bringing opportunity to possibly talk about moving and moving out of past situations and leaving the past behind so you can kind of go into the future. 5 of Swords. Pick your battles, because whether it's a conflict that you have with a partner over a domestic thing, whether it's a conflict you have with a family member over, you know, somebody you're dating, like this is about laying your weapons down and like knowing when to be like, no, I'm not going to take the bait, because you're going to get triggered, especially because if we've got planets in Cancer and in Aries and in Capricorn, through Cancer season and into the full moon in Capricorn the next 2 weeks, it's gonna bring up the cardinal squares, right? You're gonna have to change the way that you relate to yourself, make changes emotionally within the home, make changes in relationship, and then come more into your purpose, your 10th house where Cancer is. So it's either about parenting or work stuff. Just don't. When people start taunting you and somebody gets a little bossy, I'm not saying to take it, but like you don't want to add fuel to the fire because it can definitely get rather intense. Remember, Jupiter is also in Aries sign. They're not conjunct, but Jupiter and Mars being in the same sign, square Pluto, is like people are going to start getting assertive with you and kind of bossy. And it's happening so you can know where you need to partner better, but also like if you've been a pushover, like you'll see a side of yourself where you're like, no, I'm not doing this anymore. So watch for that. Don't add fuel to the fire. Don't bicker with people, please, Libra. Wishing you the best in that transit. All right, so now we've got Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Scorpio, you are going to feel this. You got Mars and Pluto in a square to each other. You know, it's interesting because both of them rule the South Node. Now, I always focus on whenever there's conjunction squares or whatever in relation to the rulers of the nodes. So we saw lots of Venus stuff with Taurus. Now we're seeing lots of, you know, Pluto-Mars stuff with the South Node. And really we're being asked to release anything that we are either afraid of or where we're reluctant to change or things that make us feel like we're not in control. I'm not going to candy coat it, Scorpio. You can be a little grouchy with this square that's coming. It'll be quick though. My guess is that you're going to be feeling the buildup, and then by the time you get to the, you know, the first week of July, it's going to be kind of calming down a little bit. But you've also got a slew of planets in your 8th house, which means you're realizing, and the things that you're talking about is about change, right? Venus being there, Mercury being there, the sun's been there the last couple weeks. So you need to communicate with other people about what can change, how your communication is changing, realizing that you don't have to be so defensive. You've got Mars in your 6th house, which is more accident prone. I could see Scorpios feeling like they need to work out more. Like there is like a sense of being like, okay, I want to feel like I'm getting things done, whether you're obsessively cleaning and just going on a rampage and reorganizing everything in the house, getting things done, painting things, whatever. And then you've got Mars that's in this square to Pluto in the 3rd, which is about communication. It's about cars. It's about traveling. Scorpios, listen to me. Watch out for accidents, okay? I don't say this to scare you. I'm just being honest with you. Watch out for accidents. And whether it's when you're driving, whether it's, you know, you're walking and not watching where you're going and you're texting. You shouldn't be texting and driving anyway, but you really don't want to be doing it during this transit, because Pluto in the 3rd house could literally be about some challenging situation involving a vehicle and a gadget. And then the 6th house is accidents. if you're doing a new gym routine, if you're working out more, you could pull a muscle. There could be something like that that could happen. Just be aware while this energy is building, pretty much from like the 28th all the way through about the 4th or the 5th of July, you're more accident prone. You're also a little bit more likely to snap when you feel like your schedule is being disrupted, right? Or that, you know, you're trying to get things done and something is blocking you. The truth is that Pluto being your chart ruler as well, is that it's all about your mindset. So you want to watch for like negative or pessimistic thoughts, which could manifest as some harsh communications. You can be a little bit bossier than usual and be really adamant about focusing on your health or your diet to the point where you're obsessive. And if you're like trying to move, or if you're trying to travel, or if you're doing something that is going to impede on either your diet or your fitness goals, you can become really mentally rigid and kind of obsessive and snappy. So please, please, please just pay attention. Trust me on this. It'll pass quickly. But to make better use of this, like, stay active. Make a list of things that you want to do. You don't need to do it all at one time. And be focused on empowering yourself and reminding yourself that there's plenty of time to get it done. And watch for getting snippy with family members. There can be some snippiness with family members, like a sibling that calls you with a crisis, or maybe you go to a 4th of July thing and then there's like a aunt, uncle, cousin there who's just being really short and you're like, I'm not going to say anything. Thank God. This is like one of the first good cards we've pulled, Knight of Cups. To me, it feels like this is about you being a little bit more easygoing and being like, it's okay, everything's fine. You know, needing to communicate when things get stressful, needing to be much more sympathetic and emotional. This is a very sweet, loving card. So maybe it's a reminder that you need to be telling people, you know, I'm here to help you. What do you need? How can I help you? Maybe this is about being kinder and nicer to yourself. But kind of approaching some of these more intense energies by just being like a little bit more nurturing and understanding. This can also be about another water sign. So it can be about another Scorpio, Pisces, or a Cancer. And somebody maybe who's just communicating and like working you through some kind of crisis, right? All right, now we got Sag and Sag rising. Sag, what's going on? You got Mars going through your 5th house. So it's fun, it's playful, it's like vacations, it's art, it's love and romance and things picking up very quickly in these departments for you. And I think Mars being in a fellow fire sign is really great because similar to Leo, even in spite of the squares, you guys get incentivized. Like there's going to be this sense of being like, I'm making a change. When Mars comes into a square with Pluto, remember Mars is moving more quickly than Pluto, there can be a sense of like impulsively partying, impulsively traveling, impulsively like doing things for you and being like, oh no, but I need this. This is for me, or this makes me happy. You could be spending a lot of money on bar tabs. You could be spending a lot of money on trips. You could be spending a lot of money on children. You could be just really focused on passion and having a good time, and anything in the name of having a good time, especially with Jupiter being in your 5th house. And then you like realize like, oh my gosh, I spent how much on birthday streamers and balloons? I spent how much on, you know, like drinks at the bar. I mean, I say that because it's the 5th house. It's hobbies too. So maybe if you're like spending a lot more money on like fitness hobbies or any hobbies relating to sports or anything like that, you might like really realize how much you've spent for some of these things. That's because you're going to see Mars move into a square with Pluto and Capricorn, which is in your natal 2nd house. So we want to watch for excess spending on fun hobbies, anything in regards to financial issues. Be very careful with the markets right now, Sag. I would say that there can be this sense of impulsiveness that's like, yes, I'm going to invest. I'm going to take a chance. I'm going to gamble, right? Especially if you're a gambler, be very careful. If you're doing any sports gambling, if you're doing any gambling on horses, it's probably going to bite you in the ass. And this would be a time that I would just be a little bit more conservative with what you're spending. And yeah. And also like romance. I could see like, you know, being like, I have this fancy dinner and I did this and I did this and I did this to impress somebody. And then you kind of like get a little down because you realize like what it costs and that it maybe wasn't worth that one really expensive night of like luxury. That's like the feeling that I'm getting. But also be careful in not feeling like the trappings of the 2nd and the 5th house squares, I think, are this feeling that you have to have something and that once you have it, it's going to feel good. So Mars could rush in and be like, yes, you know, I'm going to do this creative thing and it's going to do really well. I'm going to make a lot of money. And then you're like, shit, like I spent how much on all the materials and then it didn't pan out. Like, be careful for that. There's lots of financial trappings that kind of come up with this. The moon. So you know, when you have the full moon, right, in Capricorn in 2 weeks, it's going to be in your second house, and it's also going to be, you know, still relatively in some uncomfortable angles with some other placements. Yeah, it'll trine Taurus, but I mean, I think for the most part, it's basically saying, like, there can be unexpected expenses coming. There can be a sense of you doing things and, like, impulse buying or stuff because of what's going on with you emotionally. So if you're somebody who likes to, like, spend to deal with something that's going on emotionally, it's being aware of that. But the moon is letting you know there are things coming that you're not seeing, or unexpected expenses that might come as a result of children. That's the other way I could look at this. But the moon is saying, like, you know, not everything has been revealed yet. There's going to be something that's going to be revealed to you. Maybe you're feeling a little bit more emotional in terms of what you're willing to do with your money, and the fact that maybe you've gotten to a point where you're feeling safe and you're like, okay, what if it's not ever like that? There can be like a spin out that can come sometimes with the moon, so take care. All right, now we have got Capricorn and Cap rising. You're going to feel this, right? Because Mars is squaring your Pluto placement. So we've got Mars in your 4th house of home and family. It can be about your physical home zone. It can be the past. It can be people in your home. It can be people in your family. Because it's squaring Pluto, and Pluto is not in the more dominating kind of placement. Mars is really challenging you. Somebody's going to try to get a reaction out of you. That's what's going to happen. Somebody's going to try to get a reaction out of you. And there's going to be some kind of intensity between your will and somebody else in your home. Really simple solution. Be careful with who you let into your house, right? It's that simple. If you know that you have like a troublesome mother-in-law, like if you know that you have a sister that's like a nightmare, probably not the best time to be like, yeah, sure, I'll let you stay at my place, right? Same thing goes with anybody that may be just like a little bit more combative or a little bit more impulsive. Having them in the space can be a little bit challenging, could put you in some dangerous situations, quite frankly. So Mars will be in your 4th. There is this sense of needing to move stuff around the house, needing to organize. Some of you guys are thinking about moving, packing up, anything of that nature. This can also just be emotional disturbances. You might be a little bit moodier than usual. I love when Mars goes to the 4th house to have a to-do list of things that you want to get done, because you're less likely to be a little bit more emotionally reactionary, and you're also less likely to have any weird stuff going on around your house, right? For example, this was a Pluto conjunction, but conjunctions and squares, they're not all that different. It's a hard aspect. When I had Mars going through my 4th house earlier this year, it was in conjunction to Pluto, and we had just got a new dog. I was taking him outside, you know, teaching him how to be potty trained, so I was going in and out in the backyard a lot. Out of the blue, the neighbors either contacted us or something because they have cameras. We have cameras all around our house as well. Somebody comes flying through our backyard and like jumps the fence and like takes off running, right? Came from like another house. And I remember thinking in the back of my mind, like Mars and Pluto are conjuncting in my 4th house right now, and it literally manifested as somebody, you know, kind of going through the yards. I don't know what they were doing. I don't know if they were staking places out, seeing if people were home. It was in the middle of the day. In my mind, I'm like, oh my God, somebody's going to take this dog and like, you know, hop a fence. So, and it was right after I was outside. So I was outside, came inside, and then we heard from the neighbors and we saw on the cameras that, you know, he came to the back. My point is that you're less likely to feel like your home is under attack if you're doing things, if you're working on stuff, if you're making sure all the locks are in its place, if you're updating security and things like that. But because Mars is squaring Pluto in your sign, it tells me that somebody is going to be quite combative with you, possibly in the home or family base. Just don't let those combative people into your space. And also it's about how you're responding to things. You're going to have a meltdown. Are you going to have to get angry or violent, or are you going to get really dark, or are you going to make the decision to work more with these sextiles between Saturn and Mars? Saturn sitting in your 2nd house, which means you're going to go, I'm not going to let you tear me down, or I'm going to invest a little bit more money into finally putting a deadbolt on, you know, the front door, or we're going to put a security system in the back. Saturn can be boundaries. So there might be this realization that there are no boundaries. You need more boundaries, literally or figuratively, with people within your home or family. Watch for the intensity. Be very mindful that you are more prone to also getting really aggressive with relatives as well. So it can also be on the flip side that that is going on with you. Eight of Cups. I feel this is probably about situations that are happening where you're like realizing like, I'm not going back there. Like, I'm not going back home. I'm not going back to this situation. I'm moving on. It can be one bad interaction you have with the neighborhood for you to be like, I'm out of here. I remember when Pluto, Mars were squaring during the summer of 2020, there was like a Mars retrograde. And Pluto was in my 4th house and it was squaring Mars in my 7th, and it was on my moon. And I remember looking around being like, I'm living in Los Angeles. All of these protests are going on. People are going through my front yard. I'm seeing people climbing walls, you know, in the neighborhood. There's gangs. It was like, that was a time where I was like, nope, that's a wrap. You could have this feeling. There can be the sense of being like, there goes the neighborhood, time to get going, you know, or feeling like it's really giving you the green light with also Jupiter in your 4th house to be really reflecting on whether or not you feel safe. And a lot of you guys will move. If you're not doing it now, you're planning on it. If you're not planning on it, you're seeing the tension or something that's going on emotionally within the space. It can also be that you have a bit of a standoff with a family member, like a man in the family, or it can be like a mother figure being more aggressive. So watch for that. Looks like you're moving away from these situations, though. You're making the decision to not go back there, and you're wanting to put something to rest. Now we've got Aquarius and Aquarius rising. You got Mars moving through your natal 3rd house. That can get you kind of sassy in terms of how you're communicating. I'm liking that it is in a sextile to Saturn in your sign. So you're learning the difference between being mean and assertive. That's the bottom line, right? Mars in your 3rd house can be quick in terms of your responses and communication. The sextiles to Saturn is meaning you've been thinking things through. You've been really sitting on stuff, you know, saying like, is it time for me to have that conversation? Is it time for me to, you know, cut that person off? Is it time for me to make a move? Is it time for me to sign a lease, buy a car? Things like that can be happening. The challenge is that it's going to be in a square to Pluto that's in your 12th house. And for me, this is about working through subconscious fears and any challenges that you're having mentally, and how you communicate what you're afraid of or what's been happening. There can also be some like intense conversations you have with siblings. That's the other way that it can kind of play out. You know, a family member having some challenges, calling you, you know, saying that they're having some mental issues or that they're really stressed out and you have to like talk somebody off the ledge type of thing. That can happen. So watch for that as well. But the 3rd and the 12th house both deal with how we communicate and isolation. So you might have to say to people, sorry, I've been MIA. This is what I've had going on, you know, or I've been afraid to talk about it, but now I'm ready to talk about it. Really lean on the sextiles to Saturn in your sign. I think it's about learning how to assert yourself without feeling like aggressive or mean, and laying the boundaries so that way there is no doubt or fear revolving around whether or not you're safe or secure. There can also be a sense of journaling being really helpful, especially if you're wanting to like journal and work through something, or like if you're really angry at someone and you don't know how to deal with those feelings, you may benefit from sitting down, writing a letter, and then like disposing of it. So that way you just get it out of your system. What's interesting is the card that jumped out for you was the Lovers. So this is talking about options, choices, you know, temptation. So you can get tempted into, you know, getting into some more challenging thoughts. There can be like covert communication going on, or somebody's, you know, revealing a secret to you, or there can be a sense of you having to go back and forth about whether or not you tell somebody how you really feel or what you really think. You might be really passionate about this. The Lovers can also be talking about Gemini. And so I think about, you know, in your chart, Mercury and Venus moving through Gemini and moving into some trines with Saturn in your sign, which means you might need to have some tough love conversations with some children. If you have a child that's a Gemini, if you have 2 kids, if 2 kids aren't getting along, there might need to be a sense of you being like, I'm so stressed out, but I can't get involved in this anymore. I can't be the go-between. Or you might be getting some covert, you know, messages or something from somebody who's like a little obsessed with you. Watch for that. Pluto in the 12th can bring that up, definitely. Watch for that. And last but not least, we have Pisces, and Pisces rising. You got Mars going through your second house. You're probably feeling like making money, spending money. Jupiter's there as well. So there's this emphasis in wanting to bring more in, wanting to generate more income, more financial security. That's great. Okay. So that in itself is wonderful. What I'm not thrilled about is that you see that Mars is coming into a square with Pluto that's in your natal 11th house. This is about the goals that you have. This is other people in business-wise. There can be a sense of possible like envy. You want to watch for envy coming up of other people, of friends, of what friends are doing professionally, of what friends have, of that stuff. Like very keeping up with the Joneses energy with the squares between the 2nd and the 11th. The 2nd is also about self-esteem and spending and your spending power. It can be about your talents, and the 11th house can sometimes be things that are out of your control. So I think of like Mars being in the 11th, coming into a square with Pluto, Mars being in your 2nd, coming into a square with Pluto in the 11th, that there's unexpected expenses that you're having to spend on that you didn't anticipate spending on. That might relate to your business. It might relate to joining a network or an association. I think that you are running the potential of pushing your limits financially and feeling the need that you need to keep up with other people in your social life. So there is like some excess spending or purchasing that you like really you weren't prepared for, but you do it because like you feel like you have to. So it could be like friends come into town and you end up spending a lot more money going out and doing things with them than you anticipate. And you're like, I did this to myself. Why did I cover the bill for everything, right? And just because money's coming in, the interesting thing is that the Jupiter in your 2nd will bring in more resources. But soon Jupiter's going to retrograde. So we're going to see Jupiter get up to about 8 degrees. Then it's going to turn retrograde. I have this feeling that it's like you're seeing money come in, but then it's like, well, what do you do with it, right? Do you go and buy the expensive bag, the car, the this, or that? Do you throw the big party? Do you feel like you have to entertain everybody and spend everything that you've been bringing in, right? So watch for that. Watch out for pushing your financial limits, trying to keep up with others, excess purchasing. It can be like excess partying too. That can kind of come up as well, especially with Mars being in the 2nd and Jupiter being there. It can be spending more on food, spending more on anything like Mars related, you know? Ace of Swords. I think this is about knowing your boundaries and communicating them with other people. Right? Communicating. And the Ace is a positive card. It does talk about new beginnings. It is a card that is about working with the element of air. I think about Saturn being in your 12th house right now. It can have you feeling really isolated. I think about all these planets going through Gemini right now, and it's all really for you very heavily tied to your emotions and your feeling in regards to family and what needs to change and transform, right? The Ace of Swords can be indicating like new contracts, conversations, negotiations. So there can be like having to go back and forth with another company in regards to like what you want to be paid, budgeting, anything in regards to spending. So there can be some challenges with groups on that. Like in the back of my mind, I'm like, is this going to be a situation where there's like a heated negotiation about a raise? Is there going to be a situation where you go out to eat with a bunch of friends and like, you know, everybody runs up the bill and then you're like, why do I have to pay for this? Stuff like this can come up. So the Ace of Swords is about knowing when to communicate and laying your boundaries down and being very clear about how you're expressing yourself and what you think. So writing, words, contracts are all very important for you throughout this transit and letting people know where your boundaries lie. Guys, it is going to be an intense week ahead. So I'm sending you lots of good vibes, lots of good juju as you move through that. I'm sure because you are going to be, you know, taking this information and being a little bit more prepared, you're going to be able to kind of help diffuse some of this intensity out in the world. So please share this with other people. Sharing is caring. Give me a comment, a like if you don't mind. I would love to hear, how is this energy playing out for you? Is it also giving you like weird 2020 PTSD flashbacks? Because it is for me. Some of the same themes are coming up. There was lots of things going on in 2020 where I was feeling the pressure to move with Mars in a square to Pluto, and these same themes are coming up again. But in the end, we wouldn't have some of these things come up unless it was time to face our fears. So be courageous, you know, be brave as you approach the next week. Just a couple notes for you guys. I'm not having a live show on Saturday, okay? I want you guys to know that. There is no live show on Saturday this week. I am going to be out of town, so we are actually going to be having a live show early in the week. I will post it. I'll keep you posted on that. so you know when it's coming up, but it's probably going to be Tuesday the 5th. That's what I'm assuming. Yeah, I think it's going to be Tuesday the 5th. Stay tuned. Check my community tab for that. I will have that out later this week for you guys. Check out my new moon video in Cancer if you have not already. It's going to be happening, like I said, on the 28th. I have tarot for all the 12 signs. Guys, I have my new tarot course up. It is live if you want to sign up. Basically, we're going to start in a couple weeks' time teaching the art of intuitive tarot reading. It's a complete beginner's course, 5 live courses that I'm doing in my digital classroom. So if you want to learn how to read tarot with me, the basics of all 78 cards, how to work with a deck, how to pick a deck, how to store it, cleanse it, what the card meanings are, and how you can use them as a tool for meditation and self-reflection so you're more in tune and more confident with readings that you're doing for yourself. Check out my links below. Check out my website at beyondtheveiltarot.com. Sign up. We have got limited spaces and we're going to be starting in a couple weeks. It's going to be held on 5 consecutive Sunday mornings, 10 a.m. Pacific time. So that's going to be 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern. If you can't make it, I've heard people say, oh, I'm working on a Sunday, or I'll be late, or I live in a different time zone. You guys will get the playback. So that's the cool thing, is that I teach the classes live. I give you guys $100 off if you're willing to take the live course. Later in the summer, when the course is over, we will package it and sell it, but it will be $100 more. So it's a great way to be able to take the course sooner. We're going to have about 2 hours of lecture. Then we are also going to do Q&A. It's going to be cool, kind of like my lives. We're going to have an overhead camera. You're going to see what it's like to set up spreads and really develop a keen way of being able to intuitively read the cards. I'm so excited to teach this course. I haven't done it in a couple years, and I've made all kinds of new updates. So check out those links. While you're on my website, also considering joining my newsletter, because you'll be alerted as to when I have new courses coming out or webinars, because I am going to be teaching a webinar. It is going to be July the 10th, I believe. Guess I should have had all this stuff, huh? Yeah, it's going to be July the 10th. I'm going to be teaching a webinar on the North Node Uranus conjunction, giving you guys PDFs, talking all about how it's going to affect us globally, and giving you all the insight you need to prepare for this life-changing transit. If you haven't already seen some of my Uranus videos, I've been putting them out here and there, but this one is going to be really in depth about that transit throughout history, and also what we can expect for all of the 12 signs. So it's going to be affordable. I'll have that link out probably later this week, so you guys can get on there and you can join. It'll be fun. We'll have a live chat. It's probably going to be kind of like the show that I did for New Year's, but because I'm having to do more research and putting time into it, I decided to make it a webinar. And as always, whether you join my memberships, my live shows, if you purchase my courses, all of that money is going back into the production for me to be able to create free content for you guys. So I appreciate your donations, joining my memberships, anything like that. You make it possible for me to keep coming on and dedicating a number of hours a week for me to be able to create this content. So thank you guys so much for that. I'm looking forward to being able to see how this week plays out. I will see all of you guys very soon. Enjoy your week.